Hello, everyone, and welcome inside Upon Further Review with B-Marsh and Michael. We are presented by WinBet, and boy, do we have a lot to talk about today after the Broncos suffer their first loss of the season, 23-7 at the hands of the Baltimore Ravens. Alongside my partner, Brandon Marshall, I'm Michael Spencer. Glad to have you with us, and as we start every show, we will get right in to what's on B-Marsh's mind today, presented by Delta Dental. So, Mr. Marshall, I turn the floor over to you.
You know, Mike, I know we spoke last week about, almost taking the wins with a grain of salt because of some of the glaring issues that, the Broncos have displayed, right? And it showed on Sunday, right? As far as the Broncos offense goes, right? It showed on Sunday. They left a lot of points on the board last week against the Jets when it should have been more like a dominating game. So, it showed today. And now we see, I guess the issues with injuries and everything that's coming to fold because it just wasn't great.
It really felt like at some points the Broncos were playing with one hand tied behind their back, right? Yep. And I mean, a lot goes into that. And I think the injuries are key. And I think that you can easily point to no Graham Glasgow and no Dalton Reisner and say, hey, look, these guys are hampered, right? And that's fair. You're down 40% of your offensive line. That's fair. But B-Marsh, I think to your point, what we are seeing is what we were talking about last week. And there were issues on this offense, despite the 3 victories, despite the shutout over the Jets, there were issues on this offense and they reared their head yet again yesterday. And I'm talking about third down. They go 3 for 14 on third down conversions yesterday. I'm talking about sacks. They give up 5 sacks yesterday. Some of that was on the quarterback play a little bit, especially late in the game with Drew Lock. But this is not all of a sudden like, oh man, the Broncos were bad on third down. They are currently 3rd worst in the NFL when it comes to third down conversion on the offensive side of the football. They're completing less than 32% of their third down. So I think yesterday was a calamity of errors and encapsulated where this football team is right now with their inability to convert on third down, their ability to give up sacks, and then the fact that they're playing without 2 of their starting offensive linemen and 2 of their really good receivers, and then you lose Deontay Spencer. I mean, Brandon, it's crazy to think about. At one point in the second half, Drew Lock was completing passes to Kendall Hinton, for crying out loud. That is not in the game plan, right? That was not the idea of what Broncos football was going to be in 2021. But following that loss to the Ravens, that's where we are.
Yeah, I mean, and when you lose your playmakers like that, right, the Jerry Jeudy's and all the other receivers, and you're down starting offensive linemen, and you're going to be against a really tough, historically good, Ravens defense. The Baltimore Ravens have always had a good defense. And so, when things like that happen, it's tough, right? It's tough to get things going for yourself. It's tough to sustain drive and to score points. The defense is elite, right? We know the defense is really good, but as far as the offense and they had 11 quarterback hits, right? I mean, so those guys were under duress, basically the entire game. And, when the receivers can't create separation, they can't get open, you don't necessarily trust the guy. You don't have a lot of chemistry with a guy. It's going to show.
It felt like we were waiting for this Broncos offense for the injuries to catch up to this Broncos offense and really to this Broncos team. And yesterday they finally did. Right. And I think that's why we're sitting here talking about, and you mentioned those quarterback hits, obviously the big one. Teddy Bridgewater leaves in the second half, doesn't even come back out after halftime, suffers a concussion. And now, Brandon, the question is whether or not he's going to be good for the Steelers game coming up and how that affects this offense moving forward. I mean, the list of injuries just continues to grow. But Brandon, I don't know that I feel comfortable or that the Broncos can feel comfortable out of what they saw from Drew Lock yesterday, because if you were sitting there like, okay, this guy's learned, he's improved on some things, you didn't necessarily see that in the second half. And I don't know that that's all on him, but I'm concerned if I'm the Broncos and I have to go into Pittsburgh with Drew Lock as my starting quarterback, because that offense looked completely different than what we have seen with Teddy Bridgewater at the helm.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've said it from the beginning, the team needs Teddy Bridgewater, and whether there's a lack of first team reps for Drew Lock or, I'm not sure if he's feeling sorry for himself, but at the end of the day, there's been plenty of backup quarterbacks to come into the game and to sustain drives and to look pretty decent. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Taylor Heineke from last year, right? I think Alex Smith went out the game. for the Redskins, and you know, he came in and looked good, and he's still a starter right now. So I mean, you know, there's really no excuse, right? Nobody cares about, oh, he practiced as much or he didn't. They just want to know, did you get it done? The NFL is black and white, right? And also, he's shorthanded. Teddy's shorthanded, right? But it is what it is. He can't control that. But what he can control is his preparation. So I'm hoping, even as the backup quarterback, he's still preparing diligently, like he'll get in the game.
And I think this week might actually help Drew Lock because he will have the opportunity to prepare as a starter. And I think when he came in the game, he looked like a guy who had been the backup, right? Which is what he was. But he has the miscommunication to Cortland Sutton on a third down. What he thought was going to be a back shoulder ball to Sutton, and Sutton kept running, ends up underthrowing him by a couple yards. Then, you know, prior to that, he had Sutton going down the sideline. Looked like Drew needed to put a little air underneath it. Instead, he tried to zip it in. I think that's a guy maybe trying to do too much. Yeah. Right. And so you're starting to see some things as to, okay, yes, there is a lack of reps during the week. And that showed on Sunday, in my opinion. And then I also don't think that the Broncos did enough to help him out.
No, not at all.
I don't think they ran the ball nearly enough in the second half. And I know they're going to say, well, we were behind and it's hard to run the football when you're behind. And they were behind the chains a lot, especially on third down. Their average third down was 3rd and 9. You know, and that makes things really difficult, especially on a backup QB. But I don't know that they helped him out from a protection standpoint either.
Not at all. Not at all. I mean, when your average third down is 3rd and 9, you're not getting it done at all. You know, whether it's the play calling, whether it's the players, I think you got to, you know, blame it on everybody because Baltimore came in and did their thing. They schemed them up. Now, going back to the run game, you know, they averaged over 6 yards a carry, right? So I know I said something about the run game last week, so they answered the bell on that one. But it's tough to continue to run and eat the clock and shorten the game when you're behind. And, you know, if Albert would have caught that pass and have been 14-0, then you could have, you know what I'm saying, changed up the game plan. But, you know, they have to turn into gunslingers, and that's not what they do. Either one of them.
Yeah.
Either one of them. And the short offensive lineman and the short receiver. So.
Well, and the other thing, too, like when I went back and watched the game again this morning, like Drew Lock wasn't as bad as I thought he was originally watching it. You know, I mean, he had the third down completion to Kendall Hinton, which get called back because of a holding penalty. So then all of a sudden you're in a long situation there on a 3rd and long. I think it ended up being like a 3rd and 23. And so I don't know that it's fair to put it all on Drew Lock, especially when you're playing with Quinn Miners and Netani Muti at guard, and then you've got a second-year center in Lloyd Cushenberry. But it just – I think there was a faction of Broncos country that wanted Drew to come in and take over the starting job and never give up the reins. And sure, I mean, maybe if you're the Broncos, that's maybe best case scenario is that Drew sat for 3 weeks, he learned, and then he comes in and leads you in a fourth quarter comeback. But that was obviously not the case at Mile High, and still a long way to go. How concerned are you if the Broncos do have to go to Pittsburgh with Drew Lock as their starting quarterback if Teddy can't get right? Because who knows how long it's going to be on this concussion thing.
Look, I'm very concerned because, first of all, Pittsburgh, they call them Blitzburg for a reason, right? They create turnovers. This is, you know, Pittsburgh is a great defense, right? And this team needs Teddy in that game because he knows how to take care of the football, especially being shorthanded on offense. You know, it's tough to really see them getting a lot of explosive plays, you know, with how shorthanded they are. But I'm very concerned, and Drew is known to be kind of loose with the football. So, I mean, I'm very concerned. I think Broncos country should be concerned if Drew Lock is under the center in Pittsburgh on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a wild week when you're sitting there watching Teddy. You've been in concussion protocol, Brendan, so like, and I think it's changed since you were in it. But what is that like? And give us an idea of what Teddy's going to have to go through this week as he tries to. Are you trying to convince the doctors that you're good?
All right, yeah. I mean, when I was in concussion protocol, you know, they took me right to the locker room and they start the concussion test. But you have a baseline that you start with at the beginning of the season, right? So they hope you get as close to that baseline as you can. You know, they give you words to remember. They give you about 5 words to remember. You got to say it backwards. You have to say the months of the year backwards. They give you a sequence of numbers, like, and you say it backwards, almost like, so they say 1, 5, 6, 8, 2, 3. And you got to say it backwards, right? Which is hard anyway.
Right. I don't have a concussion, and I don't know that I can do the months backwards, to be honest with you.
That's tough, right? So then, when I was in concussion protocol, I passed all of the tests until the last question they asked for the first 5 words they gave me. And I said, I don't remember the first 5 words, right? I didn't even think they gave me 5 words. So, I was out. But then you come in on Monday and they test you again. Then Tuesday test you again. And as long as you're passing these tests, you'll be good. They'll probably let you out of protocol by Thursday or Friday. And they let me out by Friday, and I was able to play on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, and if he's out by Friday.
Yeah, by Friday. Now he knows the offense, right? Which helped. He already has, a chemistry with Cortland and Tim. That could help because he already knows the offense. So I don't think if he's out by Friday, I don't think they start Drew. They still give Teddy the rock, But if he's not there by Friday,
yeah,
all the way.
And then I really do think it's on Pat Shurmur to do some things to help Drew. And we saw a little bit of that too in the second half, right? Like I honestly, there was a couple times where Drew actually stepped up in the pocket and you were like, oh, that's different. Last year he would have bailed. And then there were a couple times where they ran some play action and got him out on the in the flat and rolled him out in a boot. And you're like, okay, this is kind of what we're playing to some strengths here. But then I think they're going to say, well, we got behind the sticks and couldn't afford to do any more of that stuff. But I think they've got to help Drew and try and get the ball out of his hand quick too. Because I think they did that a little bit yesterday, and there were some positive things that you can take away from that. But yeah, it's going to be a tall task going into Pittsburgh if Drew's your starter and you're down still. KJ, Jerry, Jerry's not coming back this week, and then who knows what's going to happen with Reisner and Glasgow.
Look, the Steelers aren't looking great anyway.
Yeah,
the offense looks just kind of stagnant, and just defense is good, but the offense just looks real basic. Big Ben, he looks like his time is passing, right?
Yeah.
Being honest, they don't really have a real run game. So I think it'll play to the Broncos' strengths, right, when they go to Pittsburgh. But the question is, can the offense sustain drives? Can they, if you go 3 for 14 or 4 for whatever you do, come on, you will not win the game on the road. You have to keep your defense on the sideline because they're going to be doing most of the work. You have to extend the drive, run the ball, quick passes initially to help out Drew, right? Get him some confidence, knowing, okay, I completed, maybe 4 or 5, throw some screens in there and then maybe let it rip, a couple double moves, right? They don't have any blazers at receiver right now since KJ's hurt. But Shurmur has to, this is where he earns his money right now.
Yeah, and then we'll see if he earns that money. Only Chicago and the Washington football team have been worse on third down this season than the Denver Broncos have been. Really, really wild to think about that. Hey, when we come back, we'll talk more about that Broncos defense. What did we see from them yesterday? The numbers certainly don't look good when you let Lamar Jackson throw for 300 yards, but maybe are we missing something there? We'll talk about that Broncos defense and much more next, right here on Upon Further Review with B-Marsh and Michael, presented by WynnBET. Welcome back inside Upon Further Review with B-Marsh and Michael. Glad to have you with us here on CBS in Denver and wherever you get your podcast. We are, as always, presented to you by the good folks over at WynnBET. Shout out to WynnBET for their sponsorship, and we're going to talk more about WynnBET coming up in the next segment as we look ahead to Monday Night Football and the Raiders and the Chargers tonight. But first, Brandon, let's talk about this Broncos defense and what we saw yesterday from them. Look, you come in and you're thinking, hey, let's not let Lamar Jackson run wild on us. And then he ends up throwing for 316 yards. And there were guys wide open. It could have been a lot worse than 316 yards had they not gotten the Mark Andrews touchdown pass called back. Also had a couple drops on the receivers there too. What did you make of this Broncos defense and what they did yesterday with Lamar Jackson?
Well, they finally weren't playing, I guess with a lead the whole game.
Yeah.
They were on the field a lot. I know the offense isn't great on third down, haven't been great all year, but at least they're putting points on the board. So I guess you kind of find out who this defense is. You get to see through the tough times and through adversity who this defense is. And, it looked like they were out of sync. They looked out of sync in the secondary. It wasn't their best performance by any stretch. They might have been a little frustrated too. I'm sure they were frustrated with the game and how things were flowing, but hey, that's football. That's life, right? The ebbs and flows.
There's a mental part of that too, right? Because The Ravens go down and get their first touchdown early in the second quarter after the Broncos score. And then the Broncos offense comes out and goes 3-and-out.
Yeah.
And you guys had that happen to a lot
Yeah.
after Peyton left. That was a really big issue, 2016, 2017. And we hadn't seen that this year through the first 3 games because we've been talking about how the Broncos had some really nice, long, sustained drives. They've been able to pick up some first downs, keep that defense off the field. They led the league in time of possession through 3 weeks. Right. And then I absolutely think there was some frustration yesterday. And I think not only from we were just back out here. Now we got to go back out. But there were guys running wide open, like I said, in that secondary, which we have talked about is supposed to be the key part of this team. Yeah. I don't think they lived up to the billing yesterday, and I don't necessarily think they lived up to the billing through the first 4 weeks.
Not at all. Not at all, right? People talk about no-fly zone 2.0. Stop it. Stop. It's not no-fly zone. You disrespecting the guys that came before because those guys were on it at least 95% of the time.
Yeah.
And I get it. You're going to have busts. You'll have situations where there's a miscommunication in the back end, and I get it. But, and look, Lamar Jackson is a former NFL MVP, right? People kind of just talk about his passing skill. He's limited, but the guy just gets it done, whether he's throwing or whether he's running. If you stop him with the run, as you can see, he can beat you with his arm. And he did yesterday. Nobody probably expected him to come in and throw for 300-plus yards, though. Mm-hmm. Not at all. Lamar Jackson doesn't even do that. He's more of a 200, 250 type of guy. But when he throws for 300 on your defense, it's an issue.
Yeah.
It's a problem, man. And so, they haven't lived up to the hype just yet. The defense is still good, but this is not no-fly zone.
The other thing that stood out to me, too, and we talked about this last week, Mark Andrews. Well, all of a sudden you're facing a tight end. Everybody talked about Darren Waller and Travis Kelce, but don't sleep on Mark Andrews. He has 5 for 67, and again, could have been a lot more if that flag doesn't call back the touchdown that he had. But that's a bit concerning to me, and I know that they're sitting there saying, well, Pat Surtain is going to be the guy who covers the tight ends when Ronald Darby is back healthy. But again, it's when, and if we're not injured, and I don't think you can guarantee that Ronald Darby comes back and somebody else doesn't get hurt. That just seems to be the kind of the way that this season has gone so far. They had Justin Simmons on Andrews, and he did okay at points, but then there were other points where Andrews got the best of him. That's a concern to me moving forward, too, is that they still haven't figured out how to try and shut down those tight ends.
And look, he's not Darren Waller by any stretch.
Yes.
Look, when I was in training camp with the Oakland Raiders and I had to cover Waller, it was a problem. It was a problem because he's so fast. He's 6'6", but he runs like a receiver. And I get, Vic will game plan. That'll be the focal point, right? But then, it's still a mismatch no matter who you put on him because he's so tall, he's so big, he's so fast, right? So, Mark Andrews is a Pro Bowl tight end in his own right. He's really good, a really good tight end. But obviously there's levels to this, right? We see the Darren Wallers and the George Kittles and Travis Kelce's. So it's going to be an issue. And it's been an issue for a while as far as even when I was there, people talking about Broncos can't cover tight ends. But hey, maybe it's just the air in Denver, okay?
Okay, all right. That's what we'll blame it on. But I do think that if you can't shut down that offense, I don't have any faith that you can shut down the Raiders. And Derek Carr may not be Lamar Jackson, certainly isn't in terms of what he can do with his feet. But then I certainly don't have any idea or any hope that you can shut down the Chiefs offense when they come to town.
No, not at all. And look, Derek Carr is playing really efficient football through the air. And so, I get the game plan, right? You have to, the Ravens are a run-first team. Mm-hmm. You have to stop them, which they did. But then, I'm not sure they spent so much time on the run during the week that the DBs were kind of like, okay, it's going to be a run type of game.
Yeah.
Hey, they got torched in the air. They got torched in the air. So they stopped the run, but come on.
Yeah, the Ravens certainly exposed some things, and we'll see how teams address that moving forward and how the Broncos address that moving forward. B-Marsh, let's get into our report card from yesterday's game. And Professor Marshall, put on your grading cap and pull out your clipboard, and who you handing out a grade to today?
Well, this is over the course of a couple weeks, man, but I want to give a nice grade. I'm going to give a B grade to Caden Stearns.
All right.
He seems like a playmaker, right? Interception, 2 sacks yesterday. the guy seems like he knows how to, find the football. He has good instincts. He's a playmaker. So I guess the Broncos found another a member of the no-fly zone.
Had a really nice pass breakup too early in that second half. I love what Caden Stearns has brought to this football team. With you, I think that they have found themselves a guy who can play back there for a really long time, and yes, it's early. It's only 4 games into his NFL career, but I really like what he is bringing to the table. I like that B grade a lot. I'm going to go ahead and give a B grade to Sam Martin. Shout out to Sam Martin. That dude had his work cut out for him yesterday. He came into the game having 9 punts through 3 games. He had 10 yesterday. All right. So shout out to the workload. He did have 1 stinker, but for the most part, I thought he was really good. And then they ended up giving up a big return. I think he outkicked his coverage on one where they had Duvernay tied up on the Broncos sideline, and then he reversed his field and ended up giving up a big return there. But I thought Sam Martin gets a B based on what we saw yesterday as we hand out our report card grades here. And hopefully, it's been a long time since we gave out an A. We need to get back to that.
We got real stingy with the A's.
Yeah. No, I like that. And we're not grading on a curve here. You know what I mean? Hey, when we come back, what caught our eye from around the National Football League, and what should we expect when the Broncos head to Pittsburgh for Week 5, sitting at 3-1? Hard to believe it's only 1 loss. I mean, it felt like the end of the world yesterday listening to Broncos country talk on Twitter and everything, but it is just 1 loss, but certainly a bad one yesterday. We'll see how the Broncos rebound. We've got more upon further review of B-Marsh and Michael, presented by WynnBET, right after this. Welcome back inside Upon Further Review with B-Marsh and Michael, presented by WynnBET. It is time to go around the league. Around the League is presented by Nissan. Choose Nissan today for great offers on their most exciting lineup ever. Shop NissanUSA.com. Brandon, I'm going to start. I thought the Chiefs, a get-right game in Philly. Look, I don't think that they've solved all of their ills, but this was a game they needed to go in. They needed to make a statement. They put up 42 points. They ran for 200 yards in that game. They did exactly what they needed to do against that Philadelphia Eagles team. The defense is still an issue, I think, for Kansas City, but that was a get-right game for Patrick Mahomes and company, and they got right on the offensive side of the football.
Yeah, absolutely. Defense is terrible. Right? They haven't had a run game, but they needed to complement Mahomes' arm, so they did look good. It was a bounce-back game. Me, I'm going to go Cardinals because I literally thought the Rams were the best team in football, and they got handled at home by the Cardinals. It was actually not even close, right? I'm like, look, Vance Joseph, Cliff, Kingsbury, right? I mean, this whole connection looks like it's working. And go ahead.
Isn't it wild how things change just like that? I mean, last week we were sitting here and you were like, hey, the Rams with what they did yesterday, I'm going to put them in the Super Bowl. I mean, and now all of a sudden you're like, well, where the heck did that performance come from?
Yeah. Cardinals said, hold my beer.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Pump your brakes, B, because we're here too, and we're for real. So, I mean, just like the AFC West, the NFC West is still going to shape out to see who the top team is. AFC West, we're going to see, Broncos, Chargers, Raiders, Chiefs. It's really a toss-up. I mean, Broncos look with the injuries is not looking great, but the Cardinals came out and dominated, man. Kyler Murray looks like he made the right decision with football over baseball.
Yes.
Yeah, yes. I mean, they hit on all cylinders right now.
He's incredible. I mean, Kyler Murray is must-watch TV every single week. The Cardinals over-under for wins coming into the season was 8.5. They're already basically halfway there. They're at 4. Like it's incredible what they've been able to do. And I think if Kyler Murray can stay healthy, then they've got a shot to really make some noise. And I'm looking forward to Thursday night's game between the Seahawks and the Rams. I think that's going to be a real fun contest.
I'll wait to see that one. It's in Seattle?
Yes, it's in Seattle.
Ooh, okay. Let's see.
Yeah. Russ going to be cooking. Chef Wilson getting in the kitchen. Hey, let's talk about tonight's game real quick. WynnBET has the Chargers as a home favorite at 3.5. The over-under is 52. I hope the over hits. I don't know that I'm going to play it, but I hope the over hits because I love a shootout. I think it could turn into a shootout too with these two teams and what they can do offensively. Brandon, if the Raiders win tonight, I think I will be convinced that they are a good team. I still think they're living on the edge here with their overtime wins against Baltimore in week 1. Then they had to go to overtime against the Dolphins last week in order to get that victory. I think they've been living on the edge, but if they can go to LA, which is going to feel like it is in Vegas, and get a win over the Rams, over the Chargers tonight, then I think I'll be convinced that the Raiders are legit and are here to stay.
So you're still not convinced?
I'm still not convinced. No. Like, I want to buy what you're selling me.
All right.
But I'm holding off. If they win tonight, and depending upon how they play, I think I might be convinced. But they've been living on the edge. They've been playing with fire. And tonight might be one of those games like what we saw with the Broncos yesterday where it gets them.
No, you're right. You're right. Because going to overtime with Jacoby Brissett is not ideal. Okay. It doesn't make you look good. It doesn't make you look like you're a good team. They went to overtime with the Dolphins, but it seems like the Dolphins have their number almost in Vegas.
There's something weird there.
Extremely exciting last year. They did it again. That might need to be a game they put on the schedule every year. Dolphins come to Vegas. The game is exciting, but like you said, they look good the first week. They look good the second week, right? I mean, even look good or semi-good last week, but the true test. On the road, division rival, AFC West, we'll see if they can get it done because the Chargers, they look good. The Chargers, they're coming off a win. They beat the Chiefs. It's almost like winning the Super Bowl when you beat the Chiefs now. You know what I'm saying? So, we'll definitely see how they play.
Yeah. I wonder if that factors into their psyche too. Like, especially with the Chargers team that isn't necessarily experienced in winning big games. Yeah. How do you flush that? How quickly can you flush that away, and does that factor in to tonight? All right, let's take a look. Marshall's sneak peek. Broncos visiting these Pittsburgh Steelers coming up this week in week 5. We talked a little bit about that Steelers defense, and B-Marsh, you seem to think that Big Ben is cooked at this point, and I would make that argument. I think the Broncos defense can get after him on Sunday, and I think that can be a big reason why the Broncos could go on the road and get a victory, no matter who the starting quarterback might be.
Right. So are you taking the under in this Broncos?
Yeah, I don't know what it is yet. I haven't looked. let me get the app. But yes, I'm absolutely going to hammer the under more than likely.
100%, because what they put up 17 points last week. They look good against the Bills in Buffalo,
which is wild.
It's mind blowing because the last 3 weeks is like, what is going on with this team?
Yes.
Who are they really? Did Buffalo just have an off day? Because the Steelers look basic. The offense looked basic. They still don't have a true number one receiver. It's not Juju. He's not a number one. So I don't know what's going on with Pittsburgh, but it's not looking good.
No, the over-under, by the way, is currently at 40. So not a lot of people in Vegas expecting this to be an offensive showing from either team.
40? That's tough to bet, though, huh?
Yeah, I might have to stay away from that, or maybe it'll creep up during the week. But I think the folks in Vegas are seeing what we're seeing, right? And these are two offenses, especially if Denver has Drew Lock as its starting quarterback. They're two offenses that you don't necessarily love to put up a whole lot of points. I think the defense is going to rue the day on Sunday, and I think whichever team plays better defense and gets to the quarterback and can force a couple turnovers is going to be the team that ends up winning this game. And I'll say this about Drew Lock. If he is indeed the starting quarterback, he had one turnover in the second half. Yeah. That's actually pretty good. Yeah. Okay. Based on where he has been in the past, I think if you're the Broncos, you'll take that.
You'll take it. Yeah, absolutely. But I think a key matchup is TJ Watt, right? The guy is a turnover machine, he's a sack machine, highest paid defensive player. You have to give him help. You have to give your tackles help. You have to chip him, with the tight end, with the running back. You're gonna have to figure something out because he can wreck a game.
They cannot go 3 or 4 wide in this game and not give their tackles some help. They absolutely cannot. That has been disastrous for this team really the last couple of years. We saw that in Sunday's game against the Ravens. If they do that on Sunday against the Steelers, they're going to be in a world of hurt, and that quarterback, whoever is back there, is going to be running for his life.
Yeah, no doubt. So I don't know what Pat Sherman needs to scheme up. But like I said, he got to make his money.
Yeah.
He has to make his money. And, I know he might not have a lot to work with talent-wise because of the injuries, but, hey, nobody cares at the end of the day.
Yeah. Hey, one quick thought before we wrap up today. What did you make of the end of the game scenario with the Ravens? They get the ball back. They
Mhm.
don't go to victory formation and take a knee. Instead, Lamar runs for 5 yards so that they can continue their streak of 100 plus yard rushing games and tie the NFL record.
Hey, I'm all for it. You know
Are
what
you
I'm saying?
really? Even I thought for sure as a defender you were going to be upset about that.
I mean, well, if I'm thinking of it objectively and I'm on the other side, I want to continue that streak too. I
Okay.
get why they did it. You know what I'm saying? Look, what they say, all is fair and I don't know, this is love. It's not love, but you know what I'm
Love
saying.
and all is fair in love and war. Yeah.
All is fair, right? So if they have a streak, I would have ran the ball too. I'm not caring about nobody's personal feelings. This is business, right? So Broncos fans, I know they was upset, but hey, get out your feelings because I'm sure you would do the same or you would want the same if we had the same type of streak.
Does it really count though? Like if you have to get it that way?
Hey, on the stat sheet, it don't say, well, 100 yards, but the last five were no, it don't. It says 100 yards, right?
All right.
So look,
All right.
so
That's a good point.
if put the shoe on the other foot, right? If we had that streak, the fans would be calling for Sherman to run the ball. They're like, yo, run the ball. Let's get the streak. Let's keep the streak alive.
Can you understand why there were some hurt feelings on that Broncos sideline? I mean, Bill
Yeah.
Bill Kolar had some not nice things to say as that was going on. Shelby Harris was in there as well. He was clearly upset.
This ain't about feelings. You know, this is football, right? It's not about feelings. It's not about protecting the other team. Well, maybe let's be nice to the other team. No, okay. Let's get what we came here to get done.
Well, and at the end of the day, if you don't give them the ball back, they don't have that opportunity. If you're the team in the lead, they don't have that opportunity. If you do what you needed to do for the first 59 minutes of that game, then they don't have that shot.
We wouldn't even be in that position. So
All right. All right, fair enough. I'm really surprised because I asked Ryan Harris that the other night on our show on CBS4, and he said basically what you just said. And so I thought you guys were going to have differing opinions on that. But okay, all right, good to know. Good to know. Hey, B-Marsh, this was a lot of fun, man. Always enjoy talking ball with you every day after the Broncos game, right here on CBS in Denver and wherever you get your podcast. That is going to do it for episode. What are we on now? 5 as we head into week 5 of Upon Further Review with B-Marsh and Michael. Really appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Remember, as you get your podcast, like, rate, subscribe, do all those good things. That really helps us out. And we, as always, appreciate you hanging out with us here on Upon Further Review with B-Marsh and Michael, presented by WinBet.